and the Congress and the territories, and make sure that we are doing all we can to be as ambitious for women and unborn children in the law, and that we're serving them at every step along the way.
As we have noted, this decision was telegraphed a few months ago, that draft leaked opinion. When you saw that, did you anticipate that that would be what we would see today, or were you concerned that something may change along the way?
Well, we were certainly hoping that it was. We thought that it was probably leaked so that it would put pressure on Roberts, that there would be a lot of violence and civil unrest based on the leak, that it would put pressure on the court to do something different. So that was certainly a concern, but I think it had the opposite reaction, which is perhaps just cement some of those decisions. But basically, those decisions were made in terms of the text and history of the Constitution, not on what is happening in front of justices' homes or the firebombing of pregnancy care centers. That did not work. And that is a vote yes for democracy. And I think that we will see this as something really important as we move ahead in trying to depolarize this world.
Abortion rights supporters will now likely look to Congress. What do you anticipate could happen there?
Well, what I see first, and what I've been working on with our allies in the movement for many months, is movement in the states. Right away, there will be pre-Roe bans on the books, say at 15 weeks, 20 weeks from conception, and trigger laws that will allow laws to go into effect in about 16 states or so. And then there'll be battlegrounds where there's great hope and possibility for unborn children and their moms in other states. The reality on the federal level is that we have a lot of work to do. Over the last several election cycles, we've had votes on the 20-week pain-capable bill in the Senate, and it's barely gotten a majority, and it certainly hasn't gotten a filibuster-proof majority. So we have a lot of work to do there, and it will certainly be in the center of midterms, and in a way that will advantage our pro-life candidates all over the country, especially U.S. senators and governors and House members looking to take over the House and the Senate.
Marjorie Felser, thank you for your time and being with us. Joining us now is NBC News political director and Meet the Press moderator Chuck Todd. Chuck, you heard part of the conversation there about what may happen in Congress. Characterize this day, what it means, and
give me just
what
a few minutes,
next.
Everyone.
Well, I mean, it is. We are already in a very polarized political climate. We are in we've been in the middle of a massive social disruption thanks to the pandemic. This is not going to sort of calm the waters. We are a divided country. This is going to divide us more. I think this is going to, if it's possible to supercharge polarization in this country, this will do that. I think you will see this sort of animate the left in ways we've not seen them animated before when it came to the judiciary and the Supreme Court. This has been one of the concrete ways that Republicans have been able to get out the vote and fire up their base over the years is this moment, this goal. They got it. So now the question I'm watching here is, does this flip the debate, right? For years, when it became the entire conversation about, okay, the limits. And now that essentially the Supreme Court is saying you can make it illegal, the question's going to be what else is next. You asked the head of the Susan B. Anthony, the pro-life organization, what was next. She was focused more on states. She talked about passing a federal law of 20 weeks. She didn't bring up contraception, but I promise you those on the left are going to be worried about that, concerned about that. There are some that have talked about the issue of contraception. You're going to hear a lot more talk about the so-called abortion pill. And I think you're going to see a lot of challenges on that. Some trying to make it illegal. The Biden administration, I think, is going to do its best to try to find ways to get access to that pill and make that easier. But I think that it is going to certainly supercharge the midterm conversation in certain places, not in every state. So in a couple of states, Michigan and Wisconsin, those are probably the two states that I would say politically will be ground zero for this debate, because both of those states have immediate bans that are now going to be triggered within the next couple of days. So who is governor who controls the legislature will matter a lot on the future of women's rights in those two states.
All right, Chuck, stay with me. I want to bring into the conversation NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor. Yamiche, talk about how this could affect the midterms and change the general political debate.
Well, this is a sea change in abortion access to women across this country for generations. This really does bring abortion to the center of the midterm election, to the center of the conversation. There were women who I've talked to on the ground in places like Louisiana and Mississippi who are now going to have to drive hours and hours for abortion access. Those women, when I was talking to them, they were not focused on abortion. They didn't even realize that abortion rights were possibly something that could be taken away. But now this focuses their minds on that and focuses their minds on sort of what the conservative movement has accomplished. The NAACP is out with a statement.
Wow. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are across the world today. And my goodness, this decision by the Supreme Court is a big deal. A big, 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 big deal. Now, I will in no way sit up here and, relay how my feelings are or what my opinion is of women obtaining abortions, because at the end of the day, it does not matter. However, breaking news, Roe v. Wade has been overturned by the Supreme Court. And essentially what this is going to mean is that this will allow states within the United States of America to completely ban abortions for pregnant women. Big deal. Big deal. Probably the first thing that comes to mind, when I think about Roe v. Wade and abortions and what this decision is going to mean for the women of the United States of America, one of my concerns is, what are women going to do now with rape babies? And you know what I mean. There are so many women that get pregnant by their rapists. A lot of times these rapists can be strangers that they didn't even know. And these women, depending on what state they are in, will no longer be allowed to obtain an abortion to remove their rapist's baby from inside of their womb. And to me, that's a very scary thing. Many women have chose to raise their rapist baby, but not all women want to do that. And what about women that aren't ready to be mothers? Yeah, they shouldn't be out there having sex unprotected. Sure. But if they have those babies, will this lead to even more matricide, meaning murder of children who were not wanted? Will there be more children that will be left at firehouses and safe places across the United States? And which states will ban? We know states here down south, the conservative red Republican ones, will most likely be the leaders of the pack on that. But listen, the Roe v. Wade battle has been a battle for year upon year upon year. There's always been an ongoing debate regarding U.S. federal and state abortion laws. And this ongoing debate has just been fueled continuously in the United States about whether or not, or to what extent, abortion should be legal. Who should decide the legality of abortion, and what the role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. This battle has also shaped debate concerning which methods the Supreme Court should use in constitutional adjudication. Now, a few months back, a transcript leaked, and this transcript, which was leaked, indicated that the Supreme Court was going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now I'm wondering if that was leaked to prepare the American people for the decision that was going to come down ultimately. Does our government have the right to control our bodies? If a woman is raped and conceives through rape, does our government and whether it's your state government, your federal government, do they have a right to determine what you can and cannot do to your body? How did this all get started? How did this whole Roe v. Wade get started? This was a case that had been brought by Norma McCorvey, known by the legal pseudonym of Jane Roe. Back in 1969, she became pregnant with her third child. She wanted an abortion, but she lived in the state of Texas during that time. An abortion was illegal except when necessary to save the mother's life. Her attorneys during that time, back in 1969, Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, filed a lawsuit on her behalf in U.S. federal court against her local district court, Henry Wade, alleging that Texas abortion laws were unconstitutional. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas ruled in her favor and declared the relevant Texas abortion statutes were unconstitutional. The parties appealed this ruling to the Supreme Court of the United States, and on January 22nd, 1973, the Supreme Court issued a 7-2 ruling decision holding that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides a fundamental right to privacy which protects a pregnant woman's right to an abortion. But the court also held that the right to abortion is not absolute and must be balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and prenatal life. That's when the court came in and they said, well, we'll resolve this. We'll resolve these competing interests by announcing a trimester table that would govern all abortion regulations in the United States. And it went something like this. During the first trimester, governments could not regulate abortion at all, except to require that abortions be performed by a licensed physician. During the second trimester, governments could regulate the abortion procedure, but only for the purpose of protecting maternal health and not for protecting fetal life. After viability, which is the third trimester of pregnancy, and the last few weeks of the second trimester, abortions could be regulated and even prohibited, but only if the laws provided exceptions for abortions that were necessary to save the life or health of the mother. The court also classified the right to abortion as fundamental, which required courts to evaluate challenged abortion laws under the strict scrutiny standard, which was the most stringent level of judicial review in the United States. The Supreme Court's decision in Roe was among the most controversial in United States history. Anti-abortion politicians and activists sought for decades to overrule the decision. On June 24th, 2022, the Supreme Court overruled Roe and Planned Parenthood versus Casey and Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which has now led to the fact that the Supreme Court of the United States has now overturned Roe v. Wade. Chief Justice John Roberts confirmed as authentic that the draft opinion that was leaked on May 2nd was real. This leak caused turmoil, not only in the Supreme Court, but widespread distrust among the justices, law clerks, and staff, and spurred an ongoing internal investigation to identify said leaker. And to my understanding, they have not found who leaked this draft opinion yet. But it appears that that draft opinion was accurate. The United States Supreme Court has now overturned Roe v. Wade. This has been an ongoing legal battle for year upon year upon year, decade upon decade upon decade. And it's a big deal. So, one moment.
The court itself. Clearly, they're not playing for popularity, but you presume they want respect. The leak of the draft opinion, I know it shocked you and a lot of people. The questions over Jenny Thomas and her efforts to overturn the election. All these things have taken perhaps given a collective hit to the court. How do you see the future of the court going forward after this ruling?
Well, I mean, this is a Supreme Court that is newly emboldened. I mean, what I think you see here so vividly represented in the decisions that we got this week, but most especially on the abortion decision, is years of sort of pent-up frustration of the conservatives that they couldn't get a majority, and I think that's why they are not taking the go slow approach that the Chief Justice had advocated here. They've been waiting to do this for years, and now they have the votes to do it, and they're not going to be held back. So I think, what does that mean for the next term? That probably means that the affirmative action in college admissions is dead. These conservatives have been opposed to that for years. They've been chipping away at it. There are 2 cases coming before the court next year from Harvard and the University of North Carolina. It seems pretty likely that affirmative action will bite the dust next term. So it's the conservatives now have the votes, and they're going full throttle.
Pete Williams, we'll continue to chat along the way here. I want to go to, actually, let me first let you know that we understand that Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to be coming before the cameras to react here very shortly. So we are standing by for that. But let me go to NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. Is there official early reaction coming from the White House, Peter?
Yeah, Lester, we haven't heard from the White House just yet, not from the president, but based on the conversations I've been having privately over the course of the last several weeks, and what I'm seeing as I look down at the West Wing, where White House staff right now are removing.
People are ready. Many of them had read that opinion. They've read reports on the opinion. They knew exactly what's coming their way.
Senator, I hate to interrupt, but Speaker Pelosi is speaking now. We want to hear what she has to say.
Got it.
Warning the radical Supreme Court is eviscerating Americans' rights and endangering their health and safety. But the Congress will continue to act to overcome this extremism and protect the American people. Today, the Republican-controlled Supreme Court has achieved their dark, extreme goal of ripping away a woman's right to make their own reproductive health decisions. Because of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, their supermajority in the Supreme Court, American women today have less freedom than their mothers. With Roe and their attempt to destroy it, radical Republicans are charging ahead with their crusade to criminalize health freedom. In the Congress, be aware of this, the Republicans are plotting a nationwide abortion ban. They cannot be allowed to have a majority in the Congress to do that. But that's their goal. And if you read, and again, we're all studying all this, but if you read what is in the very clear, one of the justices had his own statement. It's about contraception, in vitro fertilization, family planning. That is all what will spring from their decision that they made today. It's such a contradiction. Yesterday, the states cannot make laws governing the constitutional right to bear arms. And today, they're saying the exact reverse, that the states can overturn a constitutional right for 50 years, a constitutional right for a woman having the right to choose. The hypocrisy is raging, but the harm is endless. What this means to women is such an insult. It's a slap in the face to women about using their own judgment to make their own decisions about their reproductive freedom. And again, it goes well. I always have said the termination of a pregnancy is just their opening act. It's just their front game. But behind it, and for years, I have seen in this Congress opposition to any family planning, domestic or global, when we have had those discussions and those debates and those votes on the floor of the House. This is deadly serious, but we are not going to let this pass. A woman's right to choose, reproductive freedom, is on the ballot in November. We cannot allow them to take charge so that they can institute their goal, which is to criminalize reproductive freedom, to criminalize it. Right now, they're saying in states that they can arrest doctors and all the rest. What is happening here? What is happening here? A woman's fundamental health decisions are her own to make in consultation with her doctor, her faith, her family, not some right-wing politicians that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell packed the court with. While Republicans seek to punish and control women, Democrats will keep fighting ferociously to enshrine Roe v. Wade into the law of the land. This cruel ruling is outrageous and heart-wrenching, but make no mistake, again, it's all on the ballot in November. The Supreme Court has ended a constitutional right. This is 50 years proclaimed a constitutional right. What happened today was historic in many respects. Historic in that it had not recognized a constitutional right and then reversed it. This is a first. And again, just before it imposed a constitutional right to allow for concealed weapons. How about those justices coming before the senators and saying that they respected, sorry to say, the precedent of the court, that they respected the right of privacy in the Constitution of the United States? Did you hear that? Were they not telling the truth then? Again, just getting to the gun issue, because really, in preparation for this morning, I was really in an exalted state about what happened in the United States Senate yesterday. Counterpoint to the dangerous decision of this Trumpian Supreme Court that they made yesterday, but a way to take us to, as the bill is called, community safety. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Right now, and I'm going to have to leave momentarily because we just finished voting on the rule, we will be debating the bill on the floor, and we expect a good bipartisan vote on it in the House. We congratulate the Senate on the work that they have.
Well, regardless or not, this is a huge deal. A lot, this is a huge deal. This is a very, very historic moment. And I just want to leave with one thing. Regardless of what your beliefs may be, let me just pose this to you. Have you ever known a woman that was raped who was impregnated by her rapist? And if you haven't, surely you've heard the stories. But what happens? What happens now? So these women will be forced to raise their rape babies? Donald Trump, when he was in office, he purposely stacked the Supreme Court with right-wing, conservative, Republican nominees and said Supreme Court justices. And it's now the Supreme Court there are more Republicans than any other Democrat, et cetera, within the Supreme Court right now, due to Donald Trump's nominations. But even though that's not the case normally, Queen, hey, Queen's Throne, shout out to Queen's Throne in the chat. Sorry, guys, I didn't even call the chat out. I just kind of came right into it. Although that's not the normal, there's still quite a lot of it that happens, and those sorts of scenarios and situations will basically, these right-wing politicians are basically saying that if you have been raped and impregnated by your rapist, you will be forced to carry that child to term. And it takes away a woman's right to decide for her own body, for her own self, regardless of what your beliefs may be. But that's just the reality of it. So get ready. There's going to be a lot of talk about this over the next few days, for sure. And I think, again, the draft that was leaked back in March, I think that was on purpose. Until next time, everybody.